Welcome to Franchise Empires, where aspiring entrepreneurs learn exactly what it takes to become a successful franchise owner, from one location to 10 and beyond. I'm the Wolf of Franchises.
Hey everyone, it's the Wolf. Today on the show we have Bron Launsby, the CEO and founder of Slick City. This is a fascinating episode to conclude the final episode of this season. Bron was a former multi-unit franchisee running a $20 to $25 million operation of trampoline park franchises. And now he's founded a similar concept in this space, and he's off to a great start with 9 locations open and 4 licenses already awarded for his new franchise. I think you're going to love hearing all about this business model and how the current average unit volume is 4.2 million with over 7 figures of EBITDA, as per Bron's learnings and lessons shared in this episode. Thanks and hope you enjoyed.
The Wolf of Franchises is the CEO of Wolfpack Franchising, as well as a creator at Workweek Media. All opinions expressed by the Wolf and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Wolfpack Franchising or Workweek. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The Wolf, Workweek, and Wolfpack Franchising may maintain positions in the franchises discussed on this podcast.
Yeah, so I think a good place to start is just what you were doing professional before you became a franchisee, and why you ended up deciding to go into this recreation space where bigger build outs and just a kind of a bit of a different animal relative to your typical franchise that's in a strip mall.
Yeah, so I started my career more in corporate retail. So I worked for some major retailers in their buying departments, marketing, operations, etc. And so part of my responsibility would have been having a certain section of the store and being responsible for buying the inventory for that, and figuring out what the marketing plan was going to be, the financial plan, regarding it, anticipating customers' wants and needs and all those type of things. And I had a pretty good career doing that. And eventually I went into business for myself, selling that similar product to other retailers. So I became a wholesaler importer of those goods and was selling to lots of different retailers. And a friend, just came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm kind of thinking of going into business for himself," and thought that maybe we would be good, business partners, and I may have an interest. And I expressed some interest. And one of the opportunities that he brought to the table was an actual trampoline park. And this was in probably 2011. So the trampoline park space was very young at the time. And I really went to Discovery Day with that brand more in the mindset to protect my partner and his family, because, again, who even heard of an indoor trampoline park at the time? So I really wasn't sold on the concept, from the beginning. But, once I committed to go with him, I started to do some research, talked to a handful of franchisees that were in the system, talked to some of the senior management, and, started to turn the corner on the concept. So I went to Discovery Day, learned even more, and left with the idea of how many should I buy. And so I ended up buying 3 territories in 2011, and then over the next approximately 12, 13 years, scaled to 9 locations.
9 locations in that world too. What was your system-wide revenue just between your 9 locations, if you had to ballpark it?
Yeah, my system-wide sales were in the mid 20 million range.
Yeah, that's impressive. And what was it about this space that told you, hey, there is longevity to it? Because I think if we're going to call it an industry, right? There's been some peaks and valleys, and you've kind of seen it probably through the heyday, and then also the downside of COVID. Just what gave you the confidence that it's a business that can endure?
Yeah, well, first off, it just matched a lot of the things that where I was personally, and and for my family. We had I believe 3 kids at the time, and all young, and just trying to find activities for them to do that kept them off the devices and all those type of things. So I was super excited that it was it was something that had to do with kids, and it also could be something my kids would very much appreciate and kind of understand as they grew up. And so that was definitely a big part of it. Of course, the financial, side of it, but also kind of being somewhat of a pioneer at the time. There wasn't too many of them out there, but I was joining a system that had a lot of procedures in place, insurance and all those type of things to help me mitigate some of that risk.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Moving towards maybe Slick City, I know it starts with you getting introduced to this slide manufacturer. So can you kind of tell us about, what that is, the name of the company, and just how you even got introduced?
Sure. So part of my success being a trampoline park operator was I really believed in innovation, and basically that you had to reinvest in your business to have success, and I think that's pretty much any business. But that for me would mean putting new attractions in. At one point in time, we were all trampoline, and then it was adding zip lines and warrior courses and eventually slides and sports courts. And so this was in 2019. I'm planning my last trampoline park opening in Tennessee, and was looking for the newest thing to potentially put into that particular location. And the franchisor was working on some slide concepts, as well as talking with a few vendors that were doing the same. And one of those vendors was Slick Slide. So I ended up buying the first prototype for the Slick Slide launch slide and put that in my location. In addition to that, we tested what we called sports courts, but they're sealed air surfaces you can play sports on and have an enhanced game. And so put those two new things in. We were supposed to open up in March of 2020. It was delayed a little bit. We opened in late May of 2020. But overall, the park was quite successful, and the slide was extremely successful. And so after we put the slide in, I came in regular contact with Gary, who was the CEO and inventor of that technology. And he and I hit it off, had lots of conversations on what additional designs he was working on and those type of things. And we ended up deciding to partner with Gary with an investment that eventually helped us design more slides, as well as put the groundwork in place for what would be Slick City that we have today. And Slick City today is, we have locations between 30,000 square feet to 56,000 square feet in space, with probably 9 to 15 dry slides that are very much performance slides. And we have some sports courts. We have soft play for the young kids, and really it kind of appeals from that young person to that high schooler, to that college student, all the way to parents, and even some grandparents go down our slides.
Yeah. Wow. That's so when you first got introduced to this slide, how do you even test it? Do you literally, are you the guy who you're well, let's see what it's all about, and you're the one who has to go down the slides tester? What does that actually look like when you're making a business decision like that?
Yeah, great question. First off, Gary uses software, and his engineer uses software that all the water parks use. That basically you can put in the slope of the slide, you can put in the weight of the person, and various different factors that will within an inch or so tell where they're going to land. And I'm specifically talking about our launch slide, which is probably our most popular slide. And so what Gary was able to do is reduce the coefficient of friction to be similar to water. So a water slide, you get speed, you're able to do a lot of different things. Number one, because they're very large, and number two, there's water that's reducing that friction. And so in a dry environment, what he was able to do is duplicate that in a 22 foot clear height building. And so you're still going down a steep slope, but it's not near as long as what a water slide would be. And then at the end, you're going down, and then you're going back up 2 feet, and then you're flying into an airbag. And so that's the first slide that really got us, out the door. That's the first one I put in my location in Tennessee. And today it's still our most popular slide. But again, answer your question, as we've developed more and more, slides, I have been known to be a crash test dummy to get on some of these, before the guests. And again, we have a whole team that helps me, do a lot of those fun activities. But again, there's so much science behind it. And again, Gary partnered with a phobologist, which is the study of friction that actually worked on the space station. And so a lot of trial and error went into this, and we have a lot of intellectual property, regarding both the design and the utility patents.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I mean, I was just kind of thinking, I'm like, it's just like, a slide that you find at the park, but it's supersized. But sounds like between the materials, the speed, the steepness, and all that, it's just a night and day difference. And you mentioned earlier on that like you kind of tested it, and you said it was a hit. How do you, as the owner, how do you actually are you able to quantify that it was a hit? Because are people just buying tickets to do you charge and in recreation parks like this in general? I mean, is it just they're buying a ticket and then they get to do anything inside there, or are you able to track how many people are actually going on the slides and sentiment and all those types of things?
Yeah, for the most part, it's one price gets you all, and so it really wasn't the ticket price for that first one, but really it was just seeing the number of people in the lines on that particular attraction, and probably even more importantly, the parents who were were using their camera, taking videos and sending them to friends, and then the social media influence and all that type of stuff just really helped elevated the business opening for sure. And then as I became a little bit later down the line, I put more of these slides in my other trampoline parks, and so then I could really test how popular they were, because I had a baseline of business. And if the business was flat for the 6 months prior, and I put 2 slides in, and the business went up 30% the month I put them in, and then built, after that, I definitely could attribute it to the new attractions that I put in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so that's interesting. That is a good way to kind of at least have some type of, benchmark to see what business it drove. And
sure,
when you invested in this slide manufacturer, I mean, did you know then, hey, this is something that you can build a franchise concept around it, or was it more just you knew it could at least be sold into trampoline parks and that whole industry? And that was your thought process maybe in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, Gary and I both had many conversations, before I invested, on what the future was, and really we both were very much aligned in a indoor slide park without water that had some other attractions kind of built in. So that ultimately was the plan from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, given you've been a franchisee of trampoline parks, do you see any benefits? Is it just kind of a head-to-head comparison with the trampoline park, or is there something that maybe that Slick City can offer to a franchise owner that maybe makes it a bit more attractive as a business model?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, the trampoline space was very good to me, my family, et cetera, and I still think it's a solid investment for many. But
Yeah.
I also know that, from a Slick City perspective, we typically it costs less to open, a location. We're running on probably a little bit less labor, and then our insurance typically is a tad bit less. So there's definitely some cost savings, for it, and then just kind of comparing our average unit volume compared to a number of the other brands in the trampoline park space. Like, I feel very confident that the financial performance is stronger. And I think at the tail end of the day, parents are looking for experiences for their kids, and that a lot of them are looking for experiences that they can join with them, with their kids. And what we have found is that the parent participation with our slides and with sports courts is much higher than a lot of other family entertainment centers. We've had up to 20% of our business being patrons that are 18 and above, which from my past, that would have been a very, very small percent. There's just lots of concerns on tearing the ACL or whatnot, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those activities that is timeless, it's ageless. We like to say internally, I wouldn't use this from a marketing perspective, but it's all thrill, no skill. I mean, because really it is one of those things that just about everybody can do, and everybody has been on a slide at some point in time. Most people have been on a water slide. Combine all that in an indoor environment has been quite special.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting to hear that, you're actually seeing some business from folks above 18. And I get it. It makes sense. I mean, I went to a trampoline park when I was a kid for a birthday party, and I mean, you go flying through the air. So yeah, I mean, I'd still do it today, but I'm also 30 years old. I think I could see why, maybe my parents wouldn't be interested in that, but could easily go down the slide. So that's kind of interesting. It's flowing through the economics. And, speaking of the economics, I cover Slick City in my newsletter. So if any Wolf subscribers are listening to this, it's the May 16th edition. You can get it on my website. It's up there. Covered the FTD showed two corporate units, which, as you mentioned, right, like pretty high. I mean, 3.3 million average revenue between these two units that were in the FTD with I think it was an EBITDA of 1.3 million. I mean, the build out's obviously, it's not a cheap build out with the square footage you're talking, but I mean, that cash flow follow through is really something. Do you want to maybe just at least kind of shed whatever light you feel comfortable sharing on the revenue side? Like, is that all just, I don't know how you refer to it. Is it ticket sales in the business? Like, is most of the revenue being driven from like events like birthday parties and such, or do you have like open park hours or something?
Correct. So about 60% of the volume is open admission time, which we have every single day. Of course, we're open more on the weekends than the weekdays, but about 16% is birthday parties and events. That could be, school groups, that could be corporate groups, but it's heavy on the kids' birthday parties. And then about 13% is food and beverage. That's a decent size of our business.
Oh.
And then 9% goes to merchandise. So we have our socks, and of course we have special glow t-shirts that you wear during a glow program on certain nights. And then there's a couple percents for whether it's massage chairs, video games, and some of the ancillary things. But I would just mention the average unit volume is actually 4.2 million, or just under 4.2 million. So it's been a high dollar, compared to a lot of businesses within the family entertainment space. And our EBITDA has been in the in the low 40%, based on
Yeah.
that volume. And so it's been a very strong business model, for us. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're having the success, that we are, both franchising as well as opening, corporate owned and operated locations.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I mean, even just 9% merchandise is crazy. 'Cause that's like roughly 400K in just merch sales, which is like
Yeah.
80% of the revenue of a lot of other franchises just in merch.
Well, and I've had, tell, potential franchisees during discovery day, right? It's like almost running a small restaurant, type
Yeah,
situation when you're, depending on
that
the
too.
of your location. But we've really done things to just make it as simple as possible. So our food and beverage is a lot of packaged snacks, and it's a lot of beverages. It's a lot of icy, and it's pizza,
Like
chicken
pizza.
wings, and
Yeah.
similar things. But we've just learned that we need to control the experience. We've had situations before where we partnered with outside food vendors, and when you're running an event business and your pizza's late for your party, it's gonna throw off the entire day for you, because you have parties stacked on top of each other and all those type of things. And so we've just learned to kind of, that's just a part of what we are. And again, we make a decent margin on that food and beverage as well.
Yeah, that's man, yeah, when you really break down the business, it's pretty crazy to think. Like, 'cause yeah, that's like, and it's 450K in just the food and beverage line, which is, yeah, I mean, you got like a mini retail shop, a mini restaurant, and then this broader events business. So I mean, the open admission time, which is the majority here, 60% of the volume, you said, is that like, do you pay to go every time, or do you guys sell memberships where, hey, if you have a membership, you can just come in whenever you want?
I mean, today we're just doing time play. So you either buy a 90-minute times or a 120-minute time. We have offered a monthly pass or a summer pass of sorts for locations that have been open for a period of time. At some point in time, we will do memberships. We've just found out that at least so far, during our peak times, we're sold out or close to being sold out. Therefore, having guests that have already paid to have time, and then you not having time, it can be a customer service issue. But again, as we mature as a brand, memberships will be a core part of our future.
No, for sure. And I mean, look, I'm not saying it should be. Clearly, it's working with those economics. So maybe just don't do anything. But I'm kidding. As far as the thought just left my mind. Audio team, just remove this part where I'm fumbling, trying to figure out my question. What was I going to ask? Oh yeah. So the open admission time, are you able to track and see, like, do you have people who come in once a month, or, just, do you able to track that on like a person by person basis? Cause I'm impressed that, I just would have thought like events and birthday parties and such would have made up a much bigger chunk of the revenue.
Correct. We don't have enough data yet to tell you an exact percentage, but I mean, I can tell you just from my team members knowing customers' names and everything, we do have a fair amount that come in on a very regular basis.
Yeah.
But I'm also anticipate it to be somewhat similar to my experience in a trampoline park space, whereas there are also customers who come in, maybe once a year. And again, one of my frustrations, but also my joys, is when I was a trampoline park operator, I would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to update the park with the latest and greatest attraction. And then a year later, a kid in their family walks in and says, "Oh my gosh, look at that new slide," or whatever it was, and it had been put in there a year ago, right? So, but yeah, it's definitely a really good mix. I mean, I think that for some, a Slick City is their Disney vacation. For others, it's a birthday party that they come a number of times per year for each of their family members. For others, it's they for sure come once a week or multiple times a month for sure.
Yeah. Super interesting. I mean, from a location perspective, it's a destination, right? Like, do you have general frameworks for when you think about like a new location opening? How far do you think people would drive to go to one of these? Because, it's very different than fast food where convenience and proximity are going to play a major factor.
I mean, yeah, in the very beginning, when we open up a location, we have address information for all of our guests. So, I mean, we have heat maps that show how far people are coming. And in the very beginning, when opening up a location, they drive a long distance, like more than an hour to come to a facility.
Damn.
But as the business becomes mature, you can't really rely on that on a regular basis, because the kid that lives an hour away, they're probably not going to come super frequently, and that they may not have their birthday party there. And so we've really kind of fine tuned it to at about a 20 minute drive is I'm not saying that's the average, but we've seen that work in a trampoline park space, that having these locations not on top of each other, but within a number of miles of each other makes a lot of sense.
Okay. That's it's really impressive that people are driving an hour or more for this at any point. So that's exciting to hear. And from a franchisee perspective, right? Like, Bron, you've been a franchisee in a similar enough concept. You've met a lot of franchisees as well in the space, and now as a franchisor, right? Like, what kind of person can get into this? And I ask that because we within the audience of the Wolf, there's potential first-time buyers, who might be thinking, well, the economics sound phenomenal, but the build-outs, roughly, folks, check the item 7 of the FTD, but roughly 1 to 3 million. If they don't have the cash on hand, is this an SBA financeable concept? And then on the flip side, I even think there's probably multi-unit operators of maybe food or fitness brands who might just be thinking, well, again, the economics blow my current concepts out of the water, but it's just so different between, right? You got the retail sales, you got that food and beverage sales, you've got massive square footage, right? Like, it's just totally different play from a real estate perspective. So, how do you think about the types of people who you think would make a good franchisee, both from their financial ability, but then also just what it takes to operate one of these?
Yeah. Well, first off, we're looking for people that are super passionate about providing excellent customer, experience. That's when it's all said and done. That has to be there. We have to need to be safety focused, organized. Cleanliness in our business is super, super important. We're going to want some brand alignment. A true love for the brand is important. Of course, leadership skills. We found if you're a community ambassador of sorts, the person that's a parent that's on the PTA, or they're just a coach, or they're just in the community, that for sure helps us helps build a business pretty quick. Of course, that entrepreneurial spirit is super important. Most likely they're going to have some sort of business background, whether it's a corporate refugee that works for a company in a marketing or real estate, or whatever type position, or it's somebody who's, as you mentioned, already in the franchise system is a great candidate. Ultimately it's around a $400,000 liquid asset base that we're looking for. And typically the SBA does fund this type of business. So there is a fair amount of people who get into this space. Which again, I didn't get into the Slick City space, but I got in the trampoline park space 13 years ago. And I was I was partially a corporate refugee. I'd been in business, for myself. And I went into the trampoline park world with the idea that I wasn't going to operate it on a day-to-day basis, but I was going to scale pretty quick. And that's the reason why I bought, 3, and with the idea that, I kept my other job for a very long time, but I scaled my team. I wasn't, I would say, absentee. In that I really knew the metrics. I really knew what was going on. I really knew my team and those type of things. But was I the person that was working in that location on a daily basis? The answer was no. I was not that person. And
Yeah.
And again, from my experience, I've seen plenty of quasi absentee, and I've seen plenty that operate the location on a regular basis, and I've seen good successes and some fails with both of them. Not specifically on the Slick City side, but just historically.
No, that's good context. I mean, I think a lot of it does come down to the operator, whether they are full time or some level of part time. So
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that come into play there. Love to also hear about, you just given you've been a franchisee, you were a franchisee for a number of years. I've had a few other folks, one who comes to mind is Jamie Weeks, who owned I think he still owns it. I got to catch up with him. He owns like the 140 Orange Theories, 60 Dogtopias, and now he started his own franchise concept. And he made a lot of changes in the structure of his franchise agreements that were a bit more franchisee friendly as far as like territories and things of that nature. But it all came from his experience as a franchisee, where he thought, hey, like I always wished they did this a little better. So he's trying to now kind of pay it forward to his franchisees. So yeah, curious if you have anything similar of like ways you're attacking this and building it from the ground up, that are taken specifically from your experience as a franchisee.
Yeah, there's a number of things that we've done, and again, I would call it just a very a franchisee focused system. One of the things is we're very much operators of the business, and we were opening lots of locations from an owned and operated perspective. And I think that's really important, to stay relevant in the space, to know the trials of how it is to operate, to know the trials of opening a park, and be tied equally with franchise partners on how to reduce the cost and to reduce the friction on how to actually, run and open, these locations. And I also think it's very important for us to test different concepts. We're working on a 71,000 square foot location right now. We're working on locations with a little bit different attraction mix. We're working on a little bit better food and beverage in a particular location, but those are things that we should prove the model before selling it to somebody else. And so that's one of the reasons why we waited to franchise until we had 20 months worth of data on our business, because we wanted to make sure that the concept was doing quite well. Another thing that was a frustration for me is as I grew in my franchise system, I became I scaled up my team, so I ended up relying a little bit less on the franchisor as I got larger, but my royalty stayed the same, over time. And so what we've come up with is a tiered down royalty program that as a franchisee grows with us, both the number of units as well as total sales, that their royalties could drop on future locations. So those are some of the things. I mean, territory sizes, of course, is a concern. Our territory sizes are significantly larger than our competitors at this point in time. So I think that's very important. And then I also think just having, whether it's a franchise advisory council type of mindset from the beginning, that having conversations with those operators on a very regular basis on different areas that the franchisor can help improve for the entire system is super important.
Yeah, no, that's it's really awesome to hear. Especially, I love the kind of royalty. I don't want to call it a discount, but just that option where it can be a lower amount, because that's a common thing I hear from franchisees where, if it's a flat rate across the system, typically what ends up happening is the franchisees who perform the best subsidize the underperformers. And, it's good to kind of have a way where they get maybe a little bit of a reward instead for their performance. So that's cool to hear. Yeah, well, look, this has been super interesting to learn more about the business model. I'm glad we got to hear it directly from you. In wrapping up, last question, I guess, is, do you have any specific goals for Slick City as far as unit count, both from a corporate standpoint and franchise standpoint? Like, do you guys think you have it like kind of mapped out with how big this can be across the country?
We do. Ultimately, we think 500 locations in the United States is attainable. We believe that by the end of this year, we're going to have 11 or 12 open and probably 40 to 50 franchise territory sold. By the end of 2025, we fully expect to have probably 30 to 40 open and then 100 franchises actually sold. So pretty aggressive, short-term growth. We fully expect from an owned and operated or affiliate versus franchise that we're gonna continue to open a number of locations as a corporate group as well. And we anticipate that over time that'll probably be between a third and 40% will probably be corporate locations, with the remainder being a strong franchise system.
Yeah. Wow. Well, look, I think if anyone's going to do it, you've got the experience and the pedigree. So I'm excited to watch and see what happens. And, you guys are obviously off to a great start. So is there anywhere online where people listening could either, follow you and or the brand Slick City?
Yes. For the brand, we have slickcity.com, more of a customer facing. We also have slickcityfranchising.com for all of our franchise information. And then me personally, I am on LinkedIn, Bron Launsby, Launsby. And then I'm also on Facebook and Instagram.
Cool. All right. Awesome. We'll plug those websites and the social profiles in the show notes, folks. So look, if you're hungry for a franchise, I think this is a really interesting one to take a look at. Bron, thanks for coming on the show and sharing everything with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Franchise Empires. We're coming to you soon with actionable insights to take the next step on your franchise journey. So make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen.